In Chapter 2 of Revelation with 0 strength and magic against enemies with 100 crit, we play the first real map of the game. Naturally, the difficulty immediately goes from 0 to 100 at a speed comparable to how quickly my health bars will go from 100 to 0. While all enemies have 100 crit, most of the enemies are armed with bronze or throwing weapons, and Kaze is the only one with an iron weapon. This means that he's the only one that can land critical hits, but this also means that he is ridiculously strong to the point where nobody I have can actually fight him properly. Corrin gets one-rounded, Felicia gets one shot, and while Gunter can survive a few hits, Kaze's debuffs soon make the damage overwhelming, because his defense debuff counts for 3 times as much damage when considering critical hits. And all of this is made more concerning by the fact that I can barely damage the guy, because all my characters have 0 strength. I end up trying quite a few opening strategies. At first, I tried to use the Dragon Vein to camp out on the healing tiles, but Kaze's damage is too overwhelming. Next, I try to use the central area as terrain to split the enemies up and fight them one by one, but every time I do this, I eventually get caught and killed by Kaze. I keep trying to iterate for nearly an hour and a half until I realize that this won't work, and it can never work. It doesn't matter how I move or how I strategize if nobody in my army can defeat Kaze without being killed. So I'm forced to do something pretty unpleasant. I have to fight Kaze in a way where I can defeat him immediately. And seemingly the only way I can do this safely is to gamble for a critical hit. For this to work, my best shot is to attack with Gunter and land a 30% critical hit for 18 damage, bringing Kaze down to 1 HP, after which I should be able to defeat him with a pair-up attack. So to even start playing this map, I need to gamble on this 30% crit, and from what I can tell, without something like this map is actually impossible under these conditions. So I repeatedly reset to try to get an early crit on my initial attack against Kaze, which ends up being a lot more arduous than I initially expected. It ends up being quite cumbersome because every time I reset, even if I make the exact same opening moves, the enemies sometimes move slightly differently, which makes doing these repetitive actions a lot more difficult. But I keep resetting, I keep continuing on over and over until my 92nd total reset, and Gunter finally manages to land his 3% crit. But even though Kaze is now out of the way, the remaining enemies, especially Rinka, are still extremely dangerous. Beating the remainder of the map will still require very technical positioning based play. On the next turn, I move everyone to the upper right corner of the central chamber, trying to buy time to heal. And fortunately, I'm able to take out all 3 samurai on the following turn, while simultaneously blocking the remaining Oni savage from attacking Felicia. But now things get pretty tricky because Felicia has taken a lot of damage, and since there are no vulnerables on this map, Felicia actually cannot be healed without using the Dragon Vein in the center, which so far I have avoided activating so I can use the central area as blocking terrain. Now the only enemies left are an Oni Savage and Rinka, and it is imperative that I avoid fighting Rinka for as long as possible because she is basically a raid boss on this map. Fortunately, I'm able to use Gunter to distract the Oni Savage and Rinka by drawing them away, buying me precious time for Felicia to heal my units, which is a slow process because with 0 magic, my heals are very bad compared to a normal playthrough. As I continue, I'm able to isolate the Oni Savage and take him out, while simultaneously protecting my extremely low HP Felicia. Now the only enemy remaining is Rinka. I activate the Dragon Vein and begin the arduous process of taking her down. A very particular process that requires me to constantly swap out attackers and defenders to spread out Rinka's damage and make it survivable. After a considerable amount of effort, Rinka is defeated and the map is finally complete, after only 90 or so attempts that took a total of more than 3 hours in real time. This bodes well for the rest of the playthrough.